The Rev.Dr Bernard Randall has been barred from preaching for 5 years after he gave a sermon telling children that they could question teaching on LGBT relationships. After losing his job at Trent College in Nottingham, he was reported to the terrorism watchdog, Prevent, and was also deemed by the Church of England as posing a risk to children. The Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, has continually refused to allow Dr Randall to bring a misconduct case against the Bishop of Derby, who barred him from preaching. This is despite a KC saying this decision was plainly wrong. The Church of England and the Diocese of Derby said that they could not comment on the matter during an ongoing legal case. So joining me now is the Rev.Dr Bernard Randall. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Well, welcome back to the show, because, of course, you were here a few years ago to talk about this. But for those who didn't see that episode, maybe if you could explain what on earth happened here.
What happened was that we had one of these very aggressively pro-LGBTQIA plus...
The whole acronym, yeah.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
Came into the school to do some training, ostensibly to talk about eradicating homophobic bullying, which is good. But actually their aim was to embed gender identity and sexual orientation in the life of the school.
Yes.
And they had staff chanting about the need to smash heteronormativity.
Yes.
Which, if you want to smash heteronormativity, you're entitled to think that, but as a Christian minister, that rang all sorts of alarm bells.
Were you in the meeting where you were asked to chant?
I was there.
Smash
yes.
heteronormativity.
I did not join in.
Well, I don't blame you. So, I mean, it sounds quite extreme, doesn't it? The idea of the activists coming in with a clear ideological point of view. And so then you gave this sermon explaining that actually it's OK to have a different point of view.
That's right, because one of the pupils said to me, can you talk in chapel about how come we're told we have to accept all this LGBT stuff in a Christian school?
Yes.
Which I thought, have to accept, that's a really important question. So I said, no, you don't have to accept. You make up your own mind. When it comes to ideologies...
Yes.
And differences of opinion, you make up your own mind. No one can tell you what you have to believe. So you may accept the Church's teaching that marriage is properly only of a man and a woman. You may believe that we're male and female and you can't change sex. Sometimes it matters. You may look at gender identity language and think, doesn't make sense, can't be more than partly true. But I emphasised repeatedly, respect the people you disagree with. Love your neighbour as yourself doesn't mean agree. It means respect that disagreement, respect the sincerity of the other side.
And I can back you up on this because I read the full text of the sermon, and it wasn't. And we have to be clear. You weren't saying attacking people for being gay is OK, or bullying people for this. Or it was about respect for the disagreement.
I explicitly said discrimination is wrong. No excuse for personal attacks or abuse.
Yes.
I repeatedly said that because I wanted to make it absolutely clear. It's about the ideas. It's not about the people.
So where did the complaint come from? You were reported to a counter-terrorism watchdog, Prevent, by the school itself, is that right?
By the school, by the safeguarding lead at the school, who I would suggest may be fairly convinced of the LGBT activist position.
I would guess so.
Yeah.
If he or she considers this to be a form of terrorism, the idea of open discussion and debate.
It's subtle steps towards terrorism. Is that
right?
Make up your own mind today, and next week I'll be advocating Holocaust and genocide and so. I think
is that the logic of it?
That appears to be her logic. Yeah.
I mean, that's absolutely astonishing. So what happened then? When did you first hear about the fact that you'd been reported as a potential terrorist?
Well, I've been suspended by the school pending investigation. And as part of the process there, they sort of send you papers of what's going to be in the investigation. And just hidden in the papers, really, was a reference to reporting me to Prevent. And so they didn't have the courtesy to tell me directly.
They didn't tell you?
Didn't tell me. I had to find it out accidentally, as it were.
That's the sort of thing you'd quite like to know.
Well, absolutely, yeah. And when we had the disciplinary meeting with the head, one of my questions was, do you think the Church of England is a terrorist organisation? To which I hope the obvious answer is no. And he said, oh, yes, we should have told you. The referral came back, didn't meet the criteria. And
right.
So, the relief in that moment. Yes, you should have told me.
Yes.
Goodness me, you should have told me that.
But as you say, the beliefs that you were espousing are no different from those of many mainstream religions.
Yeah, and absolutely the teaching of the Church of England, which, OK, it's going through a process of discussing these things, but it remains the official teaching of the Church. That's all I was advocating. You may believe. I wasn't even pushing it.
One thing I don't understand, though, is why that wasn't the end of it. Why were you ultimately barred from preaching for 5 years?
Because we live in a mad world. Honestly, I can't give a better explanation than that.
But this has come from the Bishop of Derby.
So, yeah, so the school reported me to Prevent. and to the local authority designated officer for safeguarding. They subsequently reported me to the Teaching Regulation Agency and the Disclosure and Barring Service, all for this sermon. All of those secular authorities cleared me. The local authority designated officer, within a day, had said, doesn't meet the criteria for safeguarding. This is just a dispute about beliefs between Rev. Randall and his employer. But the school also reported me to the church safeguarding authorities, who continue with the idea that somehow teaching the church's own doctrine is a safeguarding risk. It could cause harm to people.
So, wait a minute.
To hear a sermon of this kind.
The Church of England is apparently saying that to teach their own value system is potentially terroristic.
That appears to be the kind of line they're taking.
OK.
Certainly harmful.
OK. Yeah. So what's happened now? There's a judicial review going on, yes?
Yeah, so because I lost my job at the school, I have to have permission from the bishop to minister, to preach anywhere, and she refused to give me permission because of this safeguarding concern, so-called. So I can't... It's illegal for me to preach anywhere in England, possibly anywhere in the world, I'm not quite sure. So I complained about the bishop's conduct because I thought, this is clearly not something a bishop of the Church of England ought to be doing.
Sure.
And there is a process to safeguarding. She is supposed to tell me what the concern is. Yeah. But still, 5 years plus later, don't actually know what they say the safeguarding concern really is. I'm left to guess and work it out.
Is she intimating that all Church of England priests are breaking the law?
Well, that's the logical conclusion, that all Church of England clergy are a safeguarding risk, or at least those who accept the Church's teaching would be.
Yes.
But of course, I lost my job, and therefore I am subject to... I have to wait for her to give permission.
So what other recourse is there, though?
So all I could do is make a formal complaint about the bishop. I've also got employment tribunal proceedings against both the bishop and the school. Those are ongoing. Legal things take forever, unfortunately. But my formal complaint was rejected by the Archbishop of Canterbury, because when you complain about a bishop, it goes to the Archbishop. And he said... Nothing to see here at all.
On what grounds?
On the grounds that he didn't think there was anything wrong.
He doesn't think there's anything wrong with the Church declaring that their own teaching should be criminalised?
Your words, not mine.
Well, yeah, that's what it sounds like to me.
I hesitate to criticise him too hard. He's doing a very difficult job.
Well, you have to say that, of course.
And genuinely, he is doing a hard job. But he rejected it. I appealed, and this is where we had the opinion by the KC, who said he was plainly wrong.
Yes.
Went back to the Archbishop, he got the response from the Bishop, and he said, no case to answer. So he dismissed it again. I appealed again, and the answer came back, yes, again, clearly wrong. You have to let this go forward. So it was investigated, and then it goes to the President of Tribunals, who's the sort of chief legal officer, and she went back to, there's nothing to see here. So we're judicially reviewing that decision. And
yes.
If I win the judicial review, then the Bishop of Derby would face court proceedings in a church court for effectively discrimination against a minister on religious grounds because I'm too Christian.
I mean, it's absolutely astonishing. And, of course, the Archbishop can't fall back on papal infallibility, can he? He doesn't have that.
No, he can't.
He can be wrong.
He can be very much he can be wrong. And the thing that really bothers me is that he has stood in the House of Lords and talked about the importance of freedom of speech and freedom of religion. But when it comes to his own backyard, he's not going to lift a finger, not even to try and bring some reconciliation, work out a solution. Yes. If the Church of England is established for any reason, it's to allow freedom of religion and freedom of speech for all in our society. And this should bother everybody because religious people with strong philosophical beliefs, particularly religious people, are more likely than most to say things which wider society thinks are odd, difficult, offensive, whatever it might be. And if the Church of England can't say, yes, our own beliefs, which many of you find odd and you're allowed to, but they must be freely spoken, the Church of England can't say that for its own doctrines, how is it going to support the free speech and the freedom of religion of all the other people in the country?
It's a very good point. And you say it's a mad world. I would urge people to read the full sermon so they understand just how crazy this story is and how this is all blown up out of nothing. Now, is there somewhere where people can read the sermon, find out more details about your case?
Well, they can search me online. There's plenty of stuff. But if I've been supported by a wonderful group called Christian Concern, who have been giving legal support to me, but also pastoral care, keeping me in one piece emotionally, spiritually. ChristianConcern.com/Bernard will take you to a page where there are links to more information about my case, and also a link to donate to their legal fund if people are able and willing to do that, because these things don't come cheap.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much for coming back on to talk about this. Dr. Randall, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.